To everyone in the Melendez and Ocampo families, their children and their grandchildren. Written by Mario V. Melendez on October 16, 2015. Here goes. Whenever you see tattered and downtrodden Mexican vegetable pickers huddled at work in the distance, at some sprawling commercial farm on your drive, you're actually looking at an image of your past. History has it that in the first 30 years of the last century, when the Philippines was an American territory and its inhabitants considered American nationals, 100,000 Filipino men left their families for Hawaii's sugarcane and pineapple fields, Alaska's canneries, the Pacific Northwest's sweatshops and public works, and California's plantations and farms. To the last destination went a strapping young man named Nicholas in the mid-1920s. He was 20-something, able-bodied, and handsome, as you can see in the picture from the arid, infertile northern part of the Philippines. He had a young wife and 2 small kids that he must leave behind if he was to find work to feed them. Spain has just been kicked out of the Philippines by Filipinos and Americans, and poverty was rampant. In the countryside, no thanks to a corrupt 350-year-long Spanish colonization. Employment opportunities being rare, it triggered the first diaspora of Filipino male migrant workers who set sail in search of jobs away from home. They crossed the Pacific Ocean in the thousands and landed in America, no visa required. Nicholas and his fellow Filipinos joined other migrant and itinerant agricultural laborers that worked up and down the farms, vineyards and plantations which dotted the California coastline. The Great Depression and the so-called Dust Bowl migration brought in even more waves of job seekers competing for dwindling jobs at declining pay. But they're the stuff legends of the triumph of the human spirit are made of, so poignantly dramatized in John Steinbeck's very controversial social novel The Grapes of Wrath, written to rile America's conscience. The California setting of the book in time and space and its plot are so spot on that Nicholas might as well have been another tragic character in it. Like Steinbeck's fictional characters, Nicholas also had to contend with the exploitation by greedy capitalist landowners who hire overabundant seasonal workers like him for next to nothing to keep production costs down and profit margin up, the needed agricultural labour reforms championed by Cesar Chavez in the 1960s being still light years away. By the way, just to set Chicano history straight, there's no Cesar Chavez without the brave Filipino farm workers who protested first and fired the initial salvo for reforms in the famed Delano grape strike of 1965 that Chavez joined in belatedly, which is what set him off on the road to becoming the labour icon he was destined to be. But unlike Steinbeck's characters, who could always count on the ever-present family as a support system, Nicholas had to go it alone, an ocean apart from his own family. On top of that, he likely had to contend also with the rank institutional racism that victimized blacks, Hispanics, and Asians alike in those days. He ended up in rural Santa Maria, Santa Barbara County, not far from John Steinbeck's hometown of Salinas, eking out a living doing back-breaking manual work day in, day out as a lowly farm labourer, sending every penny he earned back home. The money remittances went on for a while but ceased too soon. His young wife and his kids back home learned that he passed away. The details of his death far from home are murky, but family anecdotes pass down the generations. Had it that he was a quiet, quick-tempered man who didn't suffer fools gladly. In today's pop psychology lingo, that probably meant he had anger management issues, being away from his wife and kids and not knowing when he'll see them again, if ever, probably took a toll and something in him snapped. Hearsay information had it that he got into a physical altercation with another Filipino worker, resulting in his death. Whether that's true or not, no one knows. If true, whether he was the aggressor or the victim, who knows? Either way, in today's politically correct terms, it's called workplace violence. But back then, it was probably described by his white paymasters in terms dripping with racial slurs. Far from his loved ones, Nicolas was buried unnoticed and unlamented in a pauper's grave somewhere in Santa Maria. That humble grave, if it can still be found, is his only footprint in America. I hope to find that lonely grave one day, because to me and my siblings, and to my cousins, the Ocampos, he is Grandpa. To the rest of you, he is either great-grandpa or great-great-grandpa. But no matter how many generations removed, let's just all simply call him Grandpa Nick. By an uncanny twist of fate, my siblings and I ended up settling down in Ventura County, right next to Santa Barbara County, where Grandpa Nick lived and supposedly died and was buried. Looks like fate conspired to leave my branch of the family no excuse but to find his grave. So I'll take one for the team and embark on a mission to do just that. I'm sure that's what Papang and his sister Visitacion Melendez Ocampo want. She's Auntie Sio Ning dearest to me. They have tried before and failed. Even in death, he was as elusive to his kids as he was in life. At his death, his widow, our Grandma Elena, refused to be a victim or a charity case. Before the age of feminism, she was already a strong, independent single mom who became a successful entrepreneur. While raising 2 kids, she plunged full-time into the wholesale business of bagoong, a salty, fishy, smelly condiment no genuine Ilocano can live without, working hard to send her 2 kids through school. Thanks to the lowly bagoong, my papang and my Auntie Sio Ning graduated from a university in the country's capital, Manila, with similar major in education. Through education, Grandma made sure her kids were not going to suffer the fate of a lowly farm worker like their father, thanks to her and other Filipino parents' belief in the transformative power of education. The next generation of Filipinos acquired upward mobility, and they have since parted ways from their Mexican co-workers in the farms, vineyards, and plantations of America as they climbed up the economic ladder. But it will take another 40 years till Elena's and Nicholas's daughter, Auntie Sio Ning, would retrace her dad's trip to America, and another 20 till his son, my papang, would follow, not to work as unskilled labourers like their father, but as proud, smart and accomplished university-educated professionals. Also, unlike their dad, they didn't come here to escape poverty, having done very well in their respective careers back home. And despite the tragic story of their dad here, or perhaps precisely because of it, they came determined to find the good life in America that eluded their dad. It's as if, on a very personal level, my auntie and papang had an old score to settle with America. And they did, having found the good life in this country that they felt their dad was cheated out of. Grandpa Nick would have been proud. Our family sure does have deep roots in this country, 5 generations deep to be exact, going back 90 years. For Nicholas and his fellow Filipino farm workers, it didn't turn out to be the land of milk and honey they thought it was as they set out to cross the Pacific Ocean, not knowing if and when they'll ever see their families again, or if they even survive the trip at all, cramped like sardines for weeks in the dark underbelly of rusty, wave-battered ocean liners. It's uncanny, but I've always felt more affinity with Mexicans than with white Americans. I've always thought we share so many bonds in common, but it's only while writing this that I discovered the most personal and most compelling bond of them all, which is that once upon a time our grandpa and theirs have sweated it out, and laboured together, side by side and shoulder to shoulder, under the punishing sun to eke out an honest living from the rich white man's land. So, whenever you see tattered and downtrodden Mexican vegetable pickers huddled at work in the distance at some commercial farm on your drive, you just might see the ghost of Grandpa Nick in his wretched, worn-out work clothes, looking back at you with pride, proud that his very own flesh and blood are doing so much better than he could ever imagine in his short and ill-fated time here in America all those many years ago. That's the story of Nicholas, our grandpa and our family's pioneer in America. Whatever I discover on my journey to find him, I'll share with all his grandchildren. There, children and grandchildren here in a Facebook group page called Looking for Grandpa Nick. So wish me luck.